At this time, I recognize the ranking member for the purposes of an opening statement.
I am, frankly, I was about to say I'm pleased to be here, but it's too late in my career to pretend. Here we go again. We will listen for a couple of hours to my Republican colleagues complain that they have no chance to have oversight during an oversight hearing. In fact, I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record the list of the 26 prior occasions on which either Mr. Cordray or other officials of the CFPB have testified before Congress. It has been very closely monitored.
Without objection, you wish to introduce it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. The objection to its structure and financing would be more persuasive to me as a genuine objection on those merits rather than a complaint about independent consumer protection if I had ever heard them before about the other federal financial regulatory agencies which are exactly similarly situated. The control of the currency gets funding from fees, does not get appropriations, is independent of the Treasury, is appointed to a fixed term. As a matter of fact, we have a pattern of controllers of the currency lasting from one administration to another, across partisan lines in some cases. None of my Republican colleagues in my hearing or in my reading have ever objected, and it is, in fact, even more insulated than the CFPB. The Federal Reserve itself, yes, it gets money from the Federal Reserve, which is self-funding and doesn't get money from appropriations. And when we had a vote to subject CFPB to appropriations, I offered an amendment to subject the Federal Reserve to appropriations, and the members voted it down. When people give a reason and then don't apply it logically, and I'm not talking about taking it to an extreme, I'm talking about simply applying it very logically to identically situated agencies, it means that that's not the real reason. What we have is an objection to the fact that we have for the first time an independent consumer agency. It is not subject to browbeating. It is not subject to having its fund cut. By the way, if it was subjected to the regular appropriations process, we know what would happen with this congressional alignment because we've seen it with the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. One of the gravest problems we had in the first part of this century was largely unregulated derivatives trading. It led directly to the crisis in AIG, and it caused problems elsewhere. It led to unlimited speculation that hurt the prices for farmers. That's why our friends on the Agriculture Committee were strong for derivatives regulation. We conferred significant regulatory authority over derivatives on the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. And the response of my Republican colleagues has been to deprive it of the funds it needs, to keep it so inadequately funded that derivatives cannot be adequately regulated. And that's clearly what they would want to do here. There's no example of these kinds of objections ever being made to the other federal agencies to which it applies. So what we have here is, as I said, an objection to the CFPB being independent. The chairman said once he thought the regulators were there to serve the banks. He later said, well, that wasn't exactly what he meant. But what my Republican colleagues want to do is to put the other bank regulators who have a historic record of not being very serious about consumer protection, at putting concern for the financial well-being of the banks well ahead of consumer protection. And obviously there has to be a balance. They want to put them back in charge. And I'm also struck that there have been no substantive objections to the, Mr. Chairman, how much time did I consume? How much time have I consumed? 4. But I'll take another 1 minute. I'll yield myself another 1 minute. The lack of substantive objection is very important. There was an argument that there were too many pages. Well, there often are the pages because the entities being regulated come to the regulator and say, well, wait a minute, provide for this exception, provide for that exception. I think the merger, one of the good things we did was to take 2 statutes dealing with real estate settlements, RESPA and TILA, that were given to different agencies and put them together. So I think Mr. Cordray can be proud of the fact that he has presided over an agency about which there are very few substantive objections. And finally, I do note there was some complaint about the salaries. Once again, I haven't read the complaint about the salaries at the Office of the Control of the Currency or at the FDIC. there is, on the part of the Republicans, an understanding that the agency is popular, a failure to find specific things it did wrong, so they seize other issues on which to argue when they in fact ignore the possibility that those would be equally relevant criticisms of the other financial agencies. We reserve the balance.
I thank the gentleman.